I call the honourable member, Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise on behalf of the Green Party to talk about the Government Communications Security Bill. This is a really terrible bill that's come before this House. There are millions of people who have come before us to fight for basic democratic rights and freedoms. And one of those fundamental rights is the right to be free from constant state surveillance. That is one of the defining features of a free and open society, is that we've managed to push the state back into its box so that the state is not able, on a regular basis, without the approval of the judiciary, to engage in surveillance of our private communications. It means that we can have a private conversation without the government listening in. It means that we can send an email without the government intercepting it. There are some exceptions which we have allowed that enable the state to interfere with those private communications and to intercept them, but those are only for reasons of security, and they're only when a judge comes in and says, OK, that's OK, you can intercept that, but there needs to be a very high standard. Those basic rights and freedoms have been fought for over and again over the centuries, and they're being fought once again right now in this House. And we have a one-vote majority in this House that intends to degrade some of those basic rights and freedoms, in particular the right to live free from mass surveillance by the state, because that's what this bill enables. Regardless of what the Prime Minister might assert over and over, all the experts who have looked at this bill have come to very similar conclusions. And let me quote from one of the submitters, the Law Society, who I don't believe had any vested interest in coming to a decision that is highly critical of this bill. And this is what they said. The bill changes the Government Communications Security Bureau from being a foreign intelligence agency to a mixed foreign and domestic intelligence agency. The bill empowers the GCSB to spy on New Zealand citizens and residents, and to provide intelligence product to other government agencies in respect of those persons, in a way not previously contemplated, and that is inconsistent with the rights of freedom of expression and freedom from unreasonable search and seizure under the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act 1990, and with privacy interests recognised by New Zealand law. So the Law Society, made up of some of our leading legal professionals, looked at this piece of law and came to the conclusion that it was inconsistent with the rights of freedom of expression and freedom from unreasonable search and seizure. The government has provided no justification for the dramatic expansion of the powers of the state that are in this bill, as the Law Society has described it. Where is the giant brand new security threat which has suddenly emerged, which means that we suddenly need to give the state massive new state power to intrude into our daily lives? Where is it? Have we had a new 9/11 that none of us here just happen to notice? Where is this new justification for some dramatic expansion of the powers of the state? In fact, of course, the rationale for what has happened here is the whole .com affair, as Mr O'Rourke has said. And what the government has done is use the Kim.com affair as an excuse to dramatically increase the powers of the GCSB. Today, this has even reached a new and disgraceful level of scaremongering by the Prime Minister when he, on radio, breakfast radio, kind of casually dropped into the discourse that Al-Qaeda was present in New Zealand, and that was why we needed this new bill. I would ask people to think about this claim by the Prime Minister. So think about it like this. Either what the Prime Minister is claiming is true, that there is a serious threat to New Zealand from Al-Qaeda. Let's say it's true. If that is the case, then by the Prime Minister releasing this information and telling these dangerous people that we are spying on them and John Key has his eye on them, he has jeopardised national security. He has released sensitive national security information that was previously kept secret in order to hide from these people that the state was spying on them and watching them, that the state was protecting ordinary citizens from these dangerous terrorists. That's what John T tells us, they're dangerous. And instead, now for purely partisan political purposes to get this bill through the House, the Prime Minister has released this sensitive national security information and jeopardised national security. So that's if it's true. Now, what if what the Prime Minister said is false, which I think is another option that we should consider. If it is false that there is not a genuine threat to national security from this person or persons identified by the Prime Minister, then the Prime Minister is scaremongering. He is using something that he knows to be false in order to scare people into voting or supporting for this bill. Whichever way you look at it, either the Prime Minister is jeopardising national security for partisan political politics, or the Prime Minister is scaremongering for partisan political politics. Which is it? Which is it, Prime Minister? What is the reason you have done what you have done today by releasing this piece of information? Mr. Speaker, this bill does not happen in isolation, and it is not just about Kim.com. This bill is part of a broader international discourse about the surveillance state and what we have discovered, the truth, which was much worse than any conspiracy theorist imagined, about what the surveillance state is up to internationally, in particular the American surveillance state and the NSA. And what we discovered was that the NSA is using its surveillance technology, which includes the Waihopai base. The documents released by Snowden today and released by the Guardian newspaper in the UK today show that the NSA is using the Waihopai base as part of its international surveillance program. It goes by the name of X-Keyscore or some such program. It goes alongside PRISM. What this means is that we in New Zealand and the GCSB are part of this international surveillance program, which is gathering all of the electronic data of all New Zealanders and everybody else who it can reach, which is pretty much everybody who has access to these machines, these computers and phones, and collecting it all in one place, and then making it available to the US government and possibly the New Zealand government as well. We just don't know. So that is the international context in which we, this Parliament, by a single vote, is proposing today to expand dramatically the powers of the GCSB. It could not get much worse than that. We could not really be doing a worse thing in terms of the people who have come before us, who have fought long and hard to protect basic democracy and basic freedoms, when this Parliament, by one vote, will vote to enable the GCSB to engage in mass surveillance of New Zealanders. Now, there is one element of the bill which the Prime Minister and others have used a lot, which I just want to touch on briefly in my last minutes, which is cyber security. There is no question that there is a need for a cyber security agency in New Zealand. However, there is no need for that agency to be contained within the foreign intelligence agency that is the GCSB. It's, of course, about to become a domestic and foreign intelligence agency. Cyber security should be held within the police. The police are already engaged within cyber security. There is no need for this part of the Act, of the bill, to apply to the GCSB. It can be held elsewhere. Because if that were the case, then when New Zealanders are getting their internet protected by the police, there would be no concern that all their information is being shared with the Five Eyes and the Americans. This bill is a fundamental threat to our democracy and our freedom. It is absolutely unnecessary, and the Green Party will vote against it.
Just to inform the House before I call the next speaker, this is a split national call. Firstly, Dr. Jonathan Coleman, and then the Honourable Member Tim Grosser. So I call the Honourable Minister, Dr. Jonathan Coleman.
Mr. Speaker, that was a somewhat